Greg speaking.
Hey, Greg, what's going on? It's Ryan. How long have you been shaping?
54 years if you take it from the very first board that I ever shaped when I was 10.
Where are you from and where's home now?
Rose Bay, that's probably only a small number of kilometres from Bondi, and now Avalon, but a lot of Yamba and Gowrie Point.
Who do you have glassing your boards?
Probably just two companies now, but three as well. Greg Webber's his name, oddly enough, Rooster. He's an amazing glasser, probably the best I've ever used. He's got a way of getting things tight. Bare minimum resin without air. Yeah, anyway, so without wanking on. And then Rhino in Sydney, they're great, high-quality group of workers. They've got a much bigger turnover. And then Marcus Gray, who's also a good shaper.
How do you measure surfboard value?
That's an impossible question to answer, isn't it? Okay, there's a few different ways. One way, you're about to go in a final, it's top pro surfer, and it's about to decide the world title, and you've got your favourite board. It's absolutely perfect. You know it back to front. You're just about to win the world title. What would that guy pay if that board was taken? 10 grand, 20 grand? And then another scenario I thought of, which was really funny because it was to do with people not liking the boards built in Asia, and they got called popped out and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, imagine if you're stuck on a desert island and they said, look, we're going to do an experiment, but you can have one board as well. You're going to try and survive all by yourself, fishing rods and all that crap. You've got two choices, a hand-shaped traditional glass polyester PU, and you know what the quality's like with that, or one that's virtually identical, made in the Cobra factory in Thailand with foam sandwich, epoxy, high performance still, but virtually unbreakable. And you're there for a whole year riding, 6 to 8 foot reefs when you're not fishing. That puts another value on that board. It's not a monetary value, but guess what? I'd want the one that doesn't break. And so you've got to value boards differently that way. Yet we did the opposite when I started Insight at Yamba with Rodney Dahlberg again and my brother John. Went back to Sydney and we went, we're going to deal with dents. We're going to deal with snaps, take care of the customer, but every board's going to be light. That's a funny kind of value because you could say, hey, look, they dent and snap easily, but you've got guys coming back saying that's the most radical board I've ever ridden in my life. Did some of the best turns I've ever done. And then there's sculptural things where people have made, and also a breakthrough board. Someone does a bottom shape that's never been done before, and it represents a time in the evolution of surfboards. That should be, probably in the tens of thousands, or at least 10 grand. So yeah, so many different ways of measuring it.
What's the first thing you check when QCing your boards?
A little bit of resin that happens at the back of the board. If it's a swallowtail, my pet hate the whole time was when guys would tape up to do the hot coat or filler coat, we call it here, and they'll be pulling. The resin will run down a little bit with the tail rocker, and they'll put the tape up high because they don't want to have it lower than the bottom of the board because it won't create enough for you to sand off. But there is a meniscus anyway. So it always goes up a little bit at the edge. And guys would just have an eighth of an inch of fucking resin there. And the sander's not going to sit there and go side on with a block and take it down, and they don't want to hit it with a hard pat because it's all by itself sitting out there on these little tips. That is the one that I probably look at first.
Do you order custom blanks?
Not as much as I used to because I've dropped my nose rocker. And so because I've been renowned for having a lot of rocker, I have had phases where I've had to get them, usually find the blank that's going to suit. And it's probably just some existing rocker.
What's your PU to EPS build ratio?
Probably 60-40 PU to EPS.
Who's been giving you feedback on your boards?
Kelly's been very good. Made probably 80 boards for him over the last 6 or so years, 7 years. I mean, Barton Lynch was good, but it meant that I had to stick within a narrow set of parameters. So that was still very good because it required absolute control and refinement all the time. Oh, Adam Robertson, who am I thinking? He's great as well. Only trouble with Adam, he's so nice and so interested in my experiments that he says, whatever you want to do. But he'll give me volume and length. He's probably the best surfer in the world with the greatest knowledge of boards. So he's probably number one. I would rate him. There would be almost no one in the world that could do that because he's ridden fucking absolutely weird things. And you can never know what a board does when it's got a parallel plane shape unless you ride a board that's got no plane shape curve.
How much are you keeping your eye on surf contests?
Almost zero. The biggest draw card, the worst thing is that when young guys try to develop their style according to either copying another surfer or their style's influenced by trying to jam turns in. Luckily, that's become less and less. But in the 80s, so many surfers were just trying to rip. I saw some video of myself and my brothers from then. And what the fuck? Relax. What are you doing? Karate chopping the air and trying to squeeze in a little re-entry at the end. So, yeah, I'm not super into it. At times, it's fascinating. If the waves are great, then I'll probably watch it.
Custom board versus stock board off the rack.
If the custom is by someone who's great, then it's probably better. When the shaper is not very good, I would much rather have a pumped out stock board from a name brand. I can't say one or the other. Depending on the skill level of the person. If it's a master, absolutely. Go the handshake.
What's your custom to stock build ratio?
100% custom because maybe one or two shops. So no profile at all in the normal sense. You know what I mean? I'm known and most of the pro surfers know of me. Some of them have had boards, but, I had many more, as you know, from earlier days. But here's a lovely little story about the influence of that. So I go to the Gold Coast and there's not one Weber anywhere. Why would there be? There's no shops. And so that you want to paddle out on a board that the other guys, the boards that are built there, the local shapers, or the brands that, are in that state at least. Because then you don't look like the nobody that's come in from some other beach. You're not a local at all. You just made a bit of a signal that you're not local. So that's one factor. But when I failed to keep Taj, okay, and that was in the years when they got paid. I tried to get 3 different distribution companies that somehow were happy, well, not happy, but accepted me being one of their main brands to join together, put 25K in to pay for him, and I didn't have the money, and it just never happened. Okay, so that's bad. I lost Taj, but you'd think that the market would still think, oh, it's still the shaper. He's a great shaper. No way. Guess what happened to my 400 boards a year that I had from Japan for God knows how many years, like 20 years at that rate, pretty consistently. 500 some years. It went from 400 down to probably about 12 customs. The Japanese guys just went, no Taj Baro. Maybe Greg no good. No buy Weber. Done, finished. And to this day, I've got fucking half a dozen orders in the last 10, 20 years directly from Japanese surfers. It just makes no sense, but they're very influenced by that thinking more than most.
It's marketing.
Yeah. I was just like zero, gone, disappeared.
What do you think about board reviews on the internet?
I think that's a very effective way. Yeah, it seems to work, but I don't know the guys. There's one guy, Silas or something, and he's a good surfer. He's a little bit older, but he's probably only in his 30s, and the guy rips, and he analyses the boards well. Look, I'm known, right? And I've made boards for most of the best surfers in the world for the last whatever decades, and I know what my standard is. But if the board doesn't suit the guy, he's got to be polite. And so that's why I said that thing earlier. If you can have a range of boards that are all identical in length, width, thickness, and volume, and then it's just your combination that's being assessed, no other factor, then it's more objective. But yeah, I think the bias is in there. Those guys doing the review have to be a little bit complimentary. So it becomes not that significant a critique.
What's something most people don't know about Weber surfboards?
That they exist. There is something that's a little bit hidden about my boards. The reason that I can say that I'm pretty sure it's hidden is that no other shapers have noticed this relationship between plan shape and rocker. That's the hidden bit. But the funny thing is that there's only one surfer that ever brought it up, and that's Kelly. He said there's people floating around and everything. And he said, there's one thing I wanted to tell you or ask you, Greg, is when I put your board deck down on the ground, and this is a banana, it lies on its rail in a way that no other board seems to do. And I said, bizarre that you've even noticed that. Good on you. And then I said, can we just talk about that privately? And I just thought we were going to go into another room, but he just ushered the 4 or 5 other people out. It's really that's what you get like when you're a king or the goat, as they say. Anyway, this is a relationship that's not well known. And it is a fundamental relationship between plan shape and rocker. And when you say fundamental, what the hell does that mean? Well, it's a geometric relationship. Now, the reason why people had to go is because it's geometric and it's definable, then it's patentable. Got it? So I've already had the patent written up for decades. So that's going to be the funny bit that people go, no way. What if I change it by a certain percentage? That's fine. Then it doesn't work anymore.
Who's your stab in the darker shaper?
He's a perfect example, Rooster. He's an incredible glass and all that kind of stuff. When I was up there last time, it's only a couple of months ago, if that, he showed me a board and I just went, that is mental. I just thought you could give that to any of the best surfers in the world and they'd be blown away. And there are other guys. I told you about that guy, Glasses, who's also very, very good shaper and excellent sander. And I look at his boards and go, they're a little bit better than most of the known brands. And that's Marcus Gray, who does Weapon. Like, who would know that guy? So look, they are out there.
Tell me about your brother.
Okay, well, the funny thing with Will is obviously he's then developed into being a very, very good shaper and had a guy on tour, a guy from Yamba, Morgan Siblick. And that young guy qualified on Will's boards. His boards are some of the best boards that I ever get to see.
What's the craziest custom board order?
Well, I didn't end up making the board. It was back to Rose Bay making Weber surfboards, and it's an American guy, and he's come to Australia for a while, and he said, oh man, can I get a custom from you? And he said, look, I really want to get this thing super light. Is there any way that you can hollow out the blank, cut it in half, hollow out the blank, and I want to put ping pong balls in there? But I just went, no, you're putting fucking drugs in there, and you're taking them back out. I didn't say it, but that was one I just went, yeah, I can't really do that. It's too complicated, and I just got out of it.
Do you have anything new in the works?
Yeah, I've got a range of things that all seem to gel and go together. So you go where there's closeouts, you build a wave pool or two, you do the low-cost housing, and look, I want farmland and all that crap behind it as well. Nothing against the big chains that make their giant profits. I'm exaggerating. They are pricks, but it's capitalism. What can you do? But you find the alternative and ideally grow a chunk of what all of those people need. And the people that don't really want to work, if they want to pay off their debt, they can even do that by creating produce that then gets sold either at markets there or distributed to the cities. Idealistic, a bit hippie-ish sounding, low profit margin. And once it starts happening, then the demand for that will increase because it's just cheaper and it's fun and it's great and you can grow your food and you can, the other thing, I want to oversupply waves. So if you've got a beach that's 20 kilometres long, and there's one that I've got in mind on the east coast of Australia, and it's all farmland, and it was like $25,000 a hectare, so it's 100 metres by 100 metres, so it's over 2 acres. As people buy, and let's say there's 1,000 properties, when you get up to a certain point, you just got to bring in more of those reef-making structures, the V-walls, bring in another two, and if they're under $1 million, then it's not prohibitive because it's being divided up by 1,000 properties. So that comes out of your 10 to 15% margin. That would just, how nice if it's never crowded, ever, because you've oversupplied waves. All you got to do is go down the beach on your little four-wheel drive, what are those things that called, the little thing, or someone drives you down there and half a dozen guys will go the kilometre away. That would be a dream for me, to have those developments. And I think they will happen.
Greg, so one of the things I like to do is end with some word association. I'm going to say a word or phrase. And if you can just say the first word or phrase that comes to mind.
Okay. Interesting question.
Banana rocker.
Nightmare.
Taj Burrow.
Cool. Because his style was beautiful to watch and I liked him as a person.
Adam Robertson.
A one-off, an absolute one-off.
Avalon.
Nice.
Rod Dahlberg.
Old woman.
All right, Greg. Well, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Not at all, Ryan. Good man.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Cheers,
Bye-bye.
mate.